defense attorney looked, and it was like this, and that kid goes, he stood up and he goes, "What just happened?" And he goes, "You just pissed off the worst federal judge
In America.
in America."
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. That's exactly the words he said.
Oh.
Come back next week. Judge comes in. Prosecution, you ready? Defense, you ready? Da-da-da-da-da. Making presentations. Took about an hour, maybe. And then the judge gets done with everything, and he's like, I don't know, we came down to the sentencing phase. And he goes, "I don't see any need to postpone sentencing under the United States sentencing guidelines set forth, blah, 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 blah. I sentence you to 77 years in the custody of the Bureau of Federal Prisons, da-da-da-da-da." And I mean, that kid was bawling. He was like 21 years old and just got 70 years added to his shit for rolling his eyes.
Wow.
And I was like, no.
I'll teach you a lesson.
Well, I mean, I watched a lawyer fall asleep in front of a federal judge a couple of weeks ago in Utah. He was literally sleeping.
Yeah, they don't make those federal judges like they used to, apparently.
You came from Midland,
Oh,
didn't
you
you?
could tell she was getting real
love it.
pissed, the judge.
No, but I mean, weren't you in Midland before you went to
We
London?
ready? Countdown. We going live right
We're
now?
in the Mariana Islands.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Ready?
That's where that
Y'all
term
ready?
came from.
Tell me. Count down. 3, 2, 1. Hey, this is Chad, and of course we have Chance over here, which is former U.S. Marshal, and then Russell, which is a former federal prosecutor and defense attorney now here in Abilene, Texas. But he travels and pretty much represents a lot of people throughout Texas. This is our podcast, and we're going to talk about a lot of things that's going on in Minneapolis. One of the things we're going to talk about is law. But there's right and wrong, and then there's law. You know, I mean, whether you agree with the law or you don't agree with the law, that's what we're here. We're going to talk about some of the incidents that have happened here recently, and of course, we're going to, Russell over here, he's going to pretty much tell you what the law is on that. And of course, we talked about, 4 or 5 different things we were going to talk about today, and kind of sum up what is going on in Minneapolis. And especially, like, I sent y'all the video over the guy at Target.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So he was being real. First of all, I want to say, guys, and you're being a former U.S. Marshal, retired from the Marshal Service, if you go to work, you're trying to do your job, and you're legit trying to get criminals off the street, and you got people, morons, whistling whistles in your ear and honking their horn, you're going to eventually get you're going to become a different person. You're going to be aggravated. You're going to be agitated. And I understand you do your best to keep your persona and to do your best to keep, a level head. But there's only so much these guys can take before they just start saying, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm not done with the job, but I'm done with this. We're going to start treating everybody bad because that's the way they feel they're being attacked.
Yeah, all right. So let me put this disclaimer out.
All right.
And so, look, we love our listeners. We love that people are tuning in and want to hear what we have to say. And I want to clarify that I'm here to provide a legal analysis. And sometimes my legal analysis is different than my personal opinions. So today I'm sure I'm going to get into some unpopular opinions. I just want you to know that it's black and white, letter of the law. It's not me. I may have different opinions, but for me, let's put it out there. I mean, there's a part of this arrest that's pretty comical, right? I mean, you watch this video, and there's a part of me that thinks, man, this is tragic that we have people are getting arrested, that this is where our country is. But it's also kind of funny to see.
But you see the video. And I've gone through checkpoints down on the border. They ask you, are you a legal citizen? Are you a U.S. citizen? Yes, I'm a U.S. citizen. And you roll up your window and you keep driving. My point, I want to break it down. First of all, we don't know what happened before the video started. I know that Border Patrol had asked him several times, or ICE had asked him, are you a U.S. citizen? He kept saying, F you, it's none of your business, F you, okay, are you a U.S. citizen? They asked him several times, and he kept telling them, F you, it's none of your business. But we don't know what, he was at Target, he was at work, we don't know what started, why they approached him, what made them ask him why he's a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, like I've seen some other videos that have surfaced since then, and here's the thing that I think everyone needs to understand is one, these target employees were being obnoxious.
Yes.
And I haven't been federal law enforcement. Chance is probably better suited to talk about what it's like to have someone in your ear. But what I do know is that we have a constitutional basis, right? And every person listening to this that loves this country should be proud of the fact when we enforce the U.S. Constitution, right? I mean, these are the standards that make this country great. And here's what happens is, in my opinion, right? These ICE agents, Border Patrol, they're just trying to do their job. And then you have these dissenters, these people that are upset that come out and they're being an annoyance. Under the law, federal law enforcement, they can ask anyone if they're a U.S. citizen. It's called a consensual interaction. But in this scenario, people are like an average citizen is free to say, I don't have to answer you, right?
Correct.
And so they can just walk away and say, no, I'm not telling you, right? It's a little different than what happens here at the Target, right? This guy, it's not just that I don't have to answer you. He does say that, but he also says F you, and he's filming him, and they're blowing whistles and being jerks.
But on that note, because I see a lot of videos out there on TikTok and stuff that are a lot of misguided information.
Mm-hmm.
You're correct, 100%. As a law enforcement officer, I can't just walk up to you at Target and say, hey, let me see your ID.
Right.
If I'm conducting a legal investigation, I can walk up to you and ask for your ID, to ID who I'm speaking with, what's going on. You have to have probable cause.
Or reasonable suspicion.
Or reasonable suspicion. So a lot of these videos, they get called for shoplifting or whatever it is, and these people, I don't have to tell you shit. I don't have to whatever.
Yeah.
They're incorrect. That's not what the law says. And if you don't like it, you need to elect public officials who are going to change the law. That's not where you fight your legal defense is on the scene. That's later. If you think a police officer violated your constitutional rights, there's a place where you can go file that under color of law or whatever, official of oppression, whatever. It's not at the scene.
But I'm not going to, okay, and we go back to this guy, and the reason I thought it was funny is because the simple fact is he was cocky and arrogant. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're going to be cocky and arrogant and you're going to stand up, then stand up. But don't cry about it when the consequences come. But what I do have a concern is we don't know what happened, what started this. All we know is they were walking down from the Target, asking him if he was a U.S. citizen. He could have, we don't know why they were asking him.
Yeah, I mean, let's assume, though, that the agents are just annoyed, right? Let's just, this guy's being obnoxious, and their knee-jerk reaction when they just kind of reach that tipping point is they say, are you a U.S. citizen, right? One, this guy appears to be
a worker. He had a red vest.
He had a red vest on, but he also appears to be Hispanic or Latino descent. And so, when they're asking him, what I hear a lot online is, oh, these guys are racially profiling. And I don't think that's what it is at all. I think what happens is, this is kind of their jurisdiction. They're frustrated because this guy's in their face. And so their default is, are you a U.S. citizen? And I think, personally, without knowing more, the guy rightfully says, I don't have to answer you. And because under the Constitution, you can only ask that question and demand an answer when there's reasonable suspicion or probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed.
Well, when they arrested him, he then said, I'm a U.S. citizen. Well, they took him and dumped him off at Walmart.
Yeah.
And when people say they're racially profiling, ICE is made up of all races. It's not just a bunch of Hispanic guys or white guys. They have a bunch of different races.
Well, and our country's made up.
I mean,
right?
that's what we are.
Yeah.
And it's not racial profiling. It is legit. They are getting fed up with it, and I imagine you would have got fed up with it. But you can tell because Did you see the video where they're driving around the roundabout playing ice cream music?
No.
Ice was.
No.
I mean, they're getting comical about it. That
You have to
shows you.
laugh.
That shows you they're fed up with it.
Yeah, you
And-
have to. And it's kind of like we talked last week about the shooting. That is not the last one we're going to see.
Oh, well, the next day or a couple of days later, they had the ICE officer who was attacked, and he had to shoot a guy in the
Yeah.
leg. He was attacked with snow shovels.
These protesters are getting more and more aggressive.
Yes.
And I don't remember if we discussed it before last podcast, before we went on the air, or if it was during the podcast. I just don't understand why we're just not going ahead and arresting these people. Let them spend 2 to 3 days in jail, charge them with a felony, and they lose their right to vote.
That's.
I mean, that is so simple to me. It's like, okay, you want to come out here and just be a complete asshole. We're not going to put you in prison and overload our prison systems. We're going to charge you. You can fight it if you want to. I mean, that's your legal right.
And that's my next
We'll
question.
give you 2 to 3 days in jail. You get a felony, now you can't vote. And we're done.
There's a lot of misinformation out there where people are saying, "Oh, ICE can only arrest you if you're an illegal immigrant, or if you're here illegally."
It's not true.
And that was and there's a lot of that information going on, and that's what I wanted to ask y'all. How much arresting authority do they have? It's not just for that. I mean, they are federal agents. They can arrest you for
Well,
if you're breaking the law. Am I correct?
well, yes and no. If as a federal agent, if you are committing a felony in their presence, they have the legal right to arrest you.
Okay.
Like I said, the United States Marshal Service was brought about in 1789. And it's because that a sheriff had the ultimate powers back then. And they needed somebody that had the same powers as a sheriff. So the United States Marshal Service was given the same powers as a sheriff in any jurisdiction they're in the United States of America. Much like the Texas Rangers, but they're limited to the Texas border. The United States Marshal Service has full jurisdiction anywhere in a U.S. sovereignty. But we have the same powers as a sheriff in any municipality. Most federal agencies don't have that power. Okay, we're the only ones.
Mm-hmm.
Because like FBI, DEA, ATF, whoever, they can't go out and say, oh man, you got an arrest warrant on the state side for a state warrant. They can't go out there and make an arrest on that because they didn't commit a felony in their presence. But when an ICE agent is out there conducting a criminal investigation and you come up and you start obstructing, interfering, harassing, harboring, aiding, abetting, whatever it is, they can arrest you because you are interfering with a federal investigation.
Yeah, and so I also point out, so ICE falls under the Department of Homeland Security. So, they are special agents under Homeland Security. And essentially, they have the authority to make any arrest under federal jurisdiction.
So I feel that they're not making these arrests to these protesters or rioters or I mean they've passed the point of protest. Some of them, not all of them, but most of them have. I feel that they're not making these arrests because they're not trying to stir up more and trying to cause more on their job, more work, more paperwork, more, and they know these are American citizens. They're the same people. They got families. These protesters, they do have families at home, but these ICE agents have families at home.
Sure.
And they just want to do their job, get the bad people off. Like that one guy, he pulled up. He says, "Why are you honking your horn? You are literally we're out here to serve and pick up a
Child sex predator. Yeah.
predator, and you're whistling and honking your horn and all this other stuff,
Yeah.
and that's who you're protecting."
Well, I think there's a lot of propaganda too that the American citizenships have to deal with, right? I mean, they don't see the struggles that our federal law enforcement agents go through, what chances had to go through, that you're actually chasing down true predators, people that are going to harm the country. What they see is little abuelas that are getting deported because they're over, because that's what's shown on TV, or little 5-year-olds being captured by ICE agents, and it's kind of taken out of context what they don't understand is the difficult job that these guys do on a day-to-day basis.
But they went, from my understanding, and Homeland Security put out a statement on that, was they went to arrest the father. The father ran off and left the kid.
Yeah, you're talking about the 5-year-old
Yeah.
comment I made. Yeah, I think so. It's so easy in today's age with the propaganda machine just to take little snippets and feed the American people only part of the story. And I think that's part of the problem. That's what's feeding a lot of these protests. They don't understand the work we're doing. But I do want to step back. I want to go back to the target because I think it's a good example of where we are in society right now. Do we want law enforcement to be able to default to using their power to arrest people that are U.S. citizens in this context? I mean, what was the authority they had? And Chance, maybe you're better suited for this, to arrest this U.S. citizen.
Well, situation dictates.
Yeah.
And I've said that through my whole career. Situation dictates. And if you can articulate it on the stand when you're there as to why you did what you did, you're in the clear.
Yeah.
You did your job according to the specs and the regulations and the law of what you can do. I only saw a snippet of the video. And that's the problem right now.
Yeah.
Is we see people are doing these little snippets. I mean, you saw the lady go, I'm pregnant and they arrested me and I was doing this. Well, then you see the real video and she's cussing at him, yelling and screaming and interfering with an investigation.
Well,
and you find out the real side of what happened. Too many people now are watching these videos and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that. And then we find out later that wasn't the story.
Well, it's like when they sprayed mace and it got in on the baby's face, and these people went to, oh, we were just walking by, we weren't part of. Come to find out, they were part of that protest. They took their baby to that riot, and of course, didn't intentionally spray the child, but sprayed mace to protect themselves. And of course, the child got it, but then they play victim. Don't take your child, your baby, to something like that. What kind of parent are you?
I mean, I still get asked all the time from friends, family, relatives, whatever. Well, man, did you see that video? What do you think about this? And my go-to, and it's what everybody watching this podcast ought to be saying, or anybody that's out there watching these videos ought to say this first. Well, first of all, I wasn't there. I do not know the true context of what happened. I don't have the evidence. Based on what I saw, here is how I feel about this. Based on what I saw. But you have to be open to more evidence coming forward because you don't know what happened. I mean, how many times have we seen some shooting, right, from law enforcement had to put some guy down, and you see some civilians over there filming, and they only show the guy getting shot. That is it. Oh my gosh, law enforcement just murdered this guy. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks later, you get the body cam footage, or you get some other citizen that was filming, and you see that the guy had a gun, did this, did that, whatever, that did not show up in the first one. We've got to stop. As a civilization, this country is based on a legal system. We've got to stop proving or trying to say someone's guilty before we even have the evidence. Plus, what you do is you paint a jury. They can't get a legitimate defense from anybody that hasn't already watched it because of social media and already had a clear conclusion in their mind of what happened without any of the facts and the evidence to support it.
There was it's easier to spread misinformation or to spread that type of misinformation and get it out there and it go buck wild, and then realize, oh, we were wrong, and then write like a papers, write a statement, oh, we were wrong, this is what happened. That doesn't travel as far or as fast.
No, and part of this country is super good at doing that.
Oh, yes.
And they don't ever write a response saying, oh, sorry, we got that wrong. They are pushing an agenda against law enforcement and against people in this country trying to do the right thing. And that is the problem. I don't have a problem in the world with somebody that says, man, I made a mistake. I understand now. But that side doesn't do that.
No, they don't.
They push an agenda.
But let's talk about this though, right? Let's assume that this guy was a U.S. citizen, and he lawfully said, "I don't have to answer." And let's assume that this guy just flipped a switch. The agent just had enough of this crap and arrested him. I mean, we can agree that in that scenario, that would be an abuse of power, right?
Correct.
And that's a lawsuit.
Correct.
And so
that's government overreach. That's under color of law, the official oppression.
yeah, all that stuff, right?
Yeah,
And we don't know what happened, but if we were to assume, let's say that this protester was right, like he was, just minding his own business. He's recording to protect himself, and he refuses to answer, and the officer gets upset and arrests him because he refuses to answer. I'm not saying that's what happened, but under that scenario, we can agree that that's likely an overreach and abuse of power, right?
100%.
And we look, we're red-blooded Americans. We want to rely on the Constitution, right? You got to have accountability in our system or if you don't have accountability, then you don't have rules, right? So I'm not saying that that's what happened, but I'm saying if that happened, we're not sitting here saying that the guy needs to get off scot-free. I think there's power in accountability. So, but what does that look like? Would you have gotten in trouble with the marshals if you would have made an unconstitutional arrest?
Oh man, I got in trouble with the Marshal Service for doing my job and making constitutional arrests. What are you talking about? And we also need to put out there that there's a big difference between you are under arrest and you're detained.
Yeah,
and they detained him for 8 minutes.
That's true.
Okay.
It wasn't just
there's a big difference. I can detain you for up to 72 hours without violating your constitutional rights.
Yeah.
Once you're under arrest, and that's another thing that really, and we talked about this before we got on camera. Once I place you under arrest, there is only one person that can unarrest you. And I've seen video after video after video of police officers out there going, "Sir, you're under arrest." And then here in a minute, they take the handcuffs off and they release you. On the state side, the only person that can unarrest you is the district attorney. On the federal side, the only person that can unarrest you is the United States Attorney's Office. Mm-hmm. Once I have placed you under arrest, it is done, unless we go to court and they dismiss the charges. So there's a big difference between arrest and detained. And a lot of law enforcement, we got some guys out there that, they get out of the academy and they, you're under arrest and they just take the handcuffs off. Okay, well, everything's straight now. They need to learn, sir, at this time you are detained and we're going with our investigation. At this point, you are now under arrest. And it needs to slow down just a little bit. Like y'all were saying, a lot of feelings get involved and emotions and things get amped up. It needs to get slowed down just a little bit.
Let me throw this hypothetical. You're right. We all have kids. Jed, let's say you're with your son and you're at Walmart, and a cop comes up and says, "Hey, you stole something. I need you to check your bags." But your son didn't steal anything. Let's say, the advice you normally would have given him is just show him your bags. But he just keeps walking. He would have been lawfully had the lawful authority to do so if he truly didn't commit a crime. But let's say they just grab him, throw him on the ground, put their knee on his head, and they detain him for 8 minutes, and they search his bags forcefully.
What I'm going to do, we're going to have some choice words.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to file lawsuits.
Okay.
Because they have I'm going to make a payday out of this one, because then you'd be the first one I called. I'd be like, "Russell, this is what happened."
Yeah.
And I've got it on video, and we're going to court over this one because they violated his rights.
But hang on a second. Hang on, I'm going to jump in here.
Okay.
Just like these videos out there, you only gave a snippet.
Yeah.
Law enforcement came up and said, "I need to search you because we think you stole something."
Yeah.
Okay, hang on just a second. We just received a snippet. That's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Without the full facts. So you should have articulated a little bit more, Russell.
That's fair. Yeah, that was
Okay.
that was
So-
intentional, right?
So
The details
law
over here
enforcement,
are important.
okay? Target calls the PD, the local police department. Says, hey, we just saw a guy on our cameras and he just shoved a bunch of stuff in his backpack. We need y'all to come up here because he's shoplifting. They come up there, they watch the video, they see your son, see what he's wearing, or maybe even they see somebody that resembles him in the same white shirt, black pants, but the footage is a little grainy. They can't really see exactly, but he matches the description. Now they come up, they are conducting a lawful investigation. Okay? So it makes a big difference in articulating what happened. How did law enforcement get to that point? Now, just coming up out of the blue, having nothing, you're 100% correct. Getting called and conducting a lawful investigation is a total different animal.
All right, let me say. All right, let me spin it. I'm going to give you an example from a real case I had where a client of mine, a doctor, about 6'4", black, was at a store and was detained because someone had seen the security had called law enforcement and said, "Hey, a tall black man was shoplifting." And they see my client and they say, "Oh, a tall black guy, that's him."
It's pretty vague.
Pretty vague.
Pretty vague.
I would argue, and I think the law would agree, that is insufficient basis to establish reasonable suspicion. Now, they may be pursuing an investigation, but I think it is incumbent on law enforcement to develop reasonable suspicion before making that stop.
I would agree. They're basing that on two circumstances, tall and color.
Yeah.
Tall and color. Now, if they said it was a tall black man wearing a black shirt, white pants, had orange sneakers on.
Yeah.
And they see your client, he's a tall black man, black shirt, white pants, orange sneakers.
Yeah.
They got multiple reasons to
Yeah.
establish probable cause.
But color should not be.
Color and height.
Yeah, that's questionable.
I actually saw there was a United States Marshal a deputy U.S. Marshal in Midland, Texas, and he's wearing a suit and tie, and he's propped up against the wall, and there is a police officer on the stand in federal court, and he's testifying about a robbery that happened. And the defense attorney says, or the U.S. attorney, says, "Can you identify the suspect?" Well, Russell, you and I have sat in federal court enough to know the suspect is going to be sitting at the table with the defense attorney. Yeah. And I swear this is not a lie. That police officer pointed to that deputy United States Marshal leaning against the wall because he was a black male. And he thought that they were trying to trick him into what they were doing, and he could not ID the suspect that he arrested. So there are some problems with that, and you have to have articulable, reasonable suspicion. And probable cause, you have to develop a case. And that's one reason I love being a deputy United States Marshal, is because usually when we brought a case to court, when the U.S. Attorney's Office walked out, they had files this thick. If not, and I've seen them go to court and they'll bring out
the dolly.
They'll bring out a dolly with 20 cases
anchor
of
boxes,
files.
Right?
Yes.
Well, this goes back to
you were a U.S. attorney.
This goes back to respect. Also, let's go back to my kid. If you approach me and you make the accusation of law enforcement, your son, we feel we've got a report he may have stole something. We need to search him. If you come at me respectfully, I'm going to be okay with it. A couple of reasons why, and I talk about this in class. It's all about the attitude. I went, those little roll deals, those bucket deals that you buy at Walmart that's got the lids on it.
I don't go to Walmart.
So it was a few years ago. So I was willing, because they have their own roll wheels on them. So I rolled them through, and I bought like 3 of them, and they were stacked in with each other. And the lady at the counter, when I'm checking out, she's like, "Yes, there was actually somebody at a counter, or had a deal."
Self-check?
Yeah. she asked me, "Can I look in those?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So she looked through them. I had me open them up just to make sure I hadn't stolen anything or put anything in there, because that's the way people
Sure.
steal. Very respectful about it. I paid for them, got my receipt. As I'm going out, and at that time, Walmart here had a security guard working. So as I'm going out, he wanted to express his, show me he had authority, and demanded that I stop, and he's going to look in those totes. And I looked at him. I said, "Not without a warrant. You're not a law enforcement officer."
Yeah.
I said, "I have bought these. These are mine, and you ain't looking in them." And I rolled them some bitches right out the door.
I love it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they're mine.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they don't have a right to search you, right? I mean, so this is a fun fact for people listening, right? Sam's and Costco, that's a membership, and as part of that membership, you sign a contract that says, "I give you the authority to check my my cart when I'm leaving. You can come up and check anything," right? So you give up that right. If you're at a normal store that's open to the public, like Target or Walmart, and you're walking out the door, you'll see sometimes they have someone that wants to check your receipt. You're not under any obligation to show them your
No.
receipt. That's a search.
Yeah.
And, the Fourth Amendment's clear. We are protected from unreasonable searches and seizures of our person, of our belongings, and people forget that, right? And so, look, the Target thing to me is such an an isolated example, but something that we may see every day in our life, right? And I think it's a good opportunity to put ourselves in that person's shoes. The guy was being a dick to the agents, but there's nothing
Criminal about being.
yeah,
a
there's
dick.
nothing criminal
And-
inherently about being a dick, and there's nothing in the Fourth Amendment that says that federal agents have to be respectful, right? They just have to do their job. I don't know if I wouldn't have reacted the same way, but nonetheless, the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States says, demands that reasonable suspicion before you can do an unreasonable seizure of a person. And,
Oh, yeah.
And so, man, in that scenario, it looks pretty righteous from the agent's perspective because the guy's being a jerk. But I can't say if it was my son who's filming an officer and refusing to give an answer, and then his face gets slammed in the ground and gets detained, I wouldn't be upset and be looking at action. But like Jan said, right, context matters. We only have certain part of the information. So what happens now, right? So this agent could be facing a Bivens lawsuit, which is essentially when you violate someone's constitutional rights. The Supreme Court recently in 2022 narrowed significantly the ability for an average citizen to bring a Bivens suit. There's 1983 claims. There's potential reprimand of this individual. I don't know if any of that will happen, but there's certainly mechanisms in place where this individual could seek kind of some repercussion.
Well, yeah, and then you've got the internal affairs from his own agency investigating. He could be put on leave without pay. He could be punished several different ways.
A lot of these people don't realize that, but they need to stop and think about what they're doing by harassing and they're saying and following these agents around and interfering with their duties to make arrests. They need to stop and realize they're fixing to be done with it, and they're fixing to start arresting them. And if it was my son and I watched that video, I would have told him, "You're an idiot."
Yeah, and I was supposed to say, it comes
You
down
deserved
to
it.
not just the agent. It comes down to people and the way you're raised.
Yeah, I just
If
told him
I'm,
you're an
if
idiot.
I'm in Walmart, Target, wherever, and I'm with my son, and anybody comes up and says, "Sir, we have reason to believe that you might be shoplifting, or your son may have put something in his backpack," I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, check it." I'm like, "Dude, you better hope you don't have something in there,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're screwed." Because I'm going to be compliant, but then you have that, and it is a fine line because I have the constitutional right to go, "Yeah, piss off. Bring me a law enforcement officer with probable cause, a search warrant, whatever." I can go that route.
But
Or I can be like, "Well, I know
Make
I didn't
my kid
shoplift
hold it.
anything. Let's get this over with. Go ahead and do what you got to do, and let me get back to shopping." So you've got and I'm not saying people that fight that are wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm perfectly happy for you to stand up for your constitutional rights. Now, there are the people like the constitutional auditors that I think are a bunch of damn morons. And what they're doing is causing more problems. The police are having to deal with you when they could be going and dealing with something else. And they're always like, don't you have something more important to do? Yeah, I really do. I have more important stuff, but now I'm having to deal with you because you're out here being an idiot. So it comes down to just the way people are raised, and it comes down to whether you do have respect for law and order, and you respect. I don't mind constitutional auditors. I don't. For the right thing.
Yes.
But when you're just there trying to cause a problem so you can file a lawsuit and get a paycheck,
Yeah.
I've got a problem with that. If you really
Because they're
think that there's a
suing-
problem with something and you want to go report it and make it, man, more power to you. Praise God. Thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to the Constitution. It is the alpha and the omega, and whether this guy was being a jerk or an asshole, or the cop was being a jerk or an asshole, it doesn't matter. It was like, was there reasonable suspicion? Now, what I think is it was an unconstitutional detainment. I also think, though,
Based on what you saw.
based on what I saw, and that could change entirely. I also think it comes down to training, right? Now, did he have the authority to arrest him for refusal to answer if he was a U.S. citizen? I don't think so.
I
But
don't think so.
I do think, I do think there was a basis for interference with lawful duties, and there's probably about 10 other federal offenses that he violated in that moment. And I think if the agent had control of his emotions in that scenario, and he could have enunciated and made clear, you are interfering with a federal law enforcement investigation, can you please step aside? And then when he violated, say, if you do not comply, you will be in violation of a lawful order. I'm going to have to arrest you or detain you. I think something that simple suddenly throws it into a constitutional, permissible detainment. And it's just, I think he just reacted emotionally as opposed to relying on training and saying, okay, he doesn't have to answer me whether he's a U.S. citizen, but is he violating any other offense? And I think you would have been able to, in that moment, say, okay, I'm going to do this. But again, easy to sit here on the couch.
Yeah,
few days
and Monday
later,
night
but-
quarterback. But it's the same
No.
thing. If I go through a checkpoint and they ask me if I'm a U.S. citizen, and I tell them F you, they're going to detain me.
Well, there is a special exception in case law that I think it's if you're within 45 miles
100, I think.
or yeah,
I think it's 100 miles
It
from
might
the
be
border.
100 miles. If you're within 100 miles of a port of entry, then they are allowed to search you or your belongings without a warrant. Right?
How far is Minneapolis from the Canadian border?
Yeah,
That's a good question.
yeah. Well, let's.
Yeah. I mean, that is or he could have been on the outskirts of Minneapolis. I don't know.
314 miles.
Oh, pretty far. Well,
But was it in Minneapolis that happened, or happened? Is Michigan is on the Canadian border, right?
I don't think so. I don't-
Is
I
it?
haven't had geography in so long, and
I
I've been to
know,
Michigan.
right?
Yeah. Now all the people online are going to be laughing at us. And,
I know,
yeah, I
right?
didn't
Maybe
never
we
said
need
I
to
was a
pull that up on
geographer.
Is
the
it?
screen and tie it in, you know.
Huh?
It says Michigan shares the border with Ontario, Canada.
Yeah. So that's what I thought.
All right, good.
So it could have been anywhere in Michigan.
Yeah, maybe it's a little closer, and they're within that that sphere where they.
I mean, not Michigan, Minnesota. Why did I say Michigan? Minnesota.
Minnesota. That makes more sense.
None of us. Minneapolis, Michigan. What don't even pay
One
attention
of
to
those
me.
eastern states, northeastern Yankees.
Do not ask what's it really in these.
We're in Texas. They're Yankees. You know.
We're okay, yeah.
Just kidding, guys.
We don't
take it
travel. We don't
serious.
get no further than Oklahoma.
Yeah. Hey, well, I will tell y'all up there from the Northeast that are watching. I mean, we're all in here wearing coats right now because we have about a 3-day snowstorm, and they've already shut down schools and told everybody that our shelves in the grocery stores are all bare.
Toilet
because
paper's gone.
People think it's the apocalypse.
Yeah,
It's actually comical because I've lived on the northwestern seaboard, way up north in Washington State. I've been up to Washington and Chicago and places like that. And it's just comical. If it gets any precipitation in Texas, it is a disaster, and people shut down everything.
Well, this is where you guys can make fun of me, right? For about an hour before we started, I sent a text to Chad. Said, "Hey, it's raining. I don't think it is safe and wise for me to travel in this weather." And these two guys were giving me a lot of shit for it. So and deservedly so. But I
What he said was, the roads may be bad, or you can just tell me I'm being a bitch, and I'll go. And I would text him. I said, "You're a bitch for driving a car." He goes, I've got a GMC 2500 4-wheel drive. I said, "Well, then put it in auto."
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
No, I did text Chad before this and say, hey, by the time we get out, the roads are going to be extremely icy.
Yes,
Do
all right, thank you.
I will back you up. And I said, do we maybe need to postpone
That email
the
had went
podcast
out.
Just
You
because-
got auto.
But I've got a Ford F-250, and
Yeah.
I put it in 4-wheel drive and just came
we just
on,
going home.
So, yeah.
We'll be all right. You'll be all right, O, too.
I'll be good.
I'll follow you in
And I
case you
don't-
need to get
you
pulled out of the
Why
ditch.
I thought you drove a car.
I know that is offensive. I don't think I've driven a car since high school.
I want to say my wife had said something about.
Well, you're a defense attorney. We just assume you drive a Prius.
Like, yeah, right. Oh God, it hurts my heart.
Real quick on the subject of the 5-year-old. From my understanding, every one of us have a heart, and I'm talking to the people out there and y'all. We're family men. We're fathers. These ICE agents are fathers, grandfathers, uncles. At no time, if they go to arrest the subject and he runs off and leaves his 5-year-old child there, it is very cold up there. They can't just leave that child.
No.
They can't just abandon that child. That child is an innocent 5-year-old child that his father just ran off and left him. We're fathers. We're there. Those people, and you would have to have, and for several agents, you might find one heartless one, but you're not going to have a bunch of heartless ones in that group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes. Yeah.
Somebody's going. There's going to be more people in that group because everybody has a bad egg. They're going to want to take care of that child. They're not going to abandon that child. They're not going to leave that child. Even though that child's not their responsibility, they're still going to take the responsibility. But instead of the media giving them credit for taking, they detained a 5-year-old.
No, they took him into custody to protect him.
They're protecting him in protective custody. I mean, from his dad. They're not using him as bait. They're not. I mean, what kind of person do you think would do something like that? I mean, and I'm about as conservative as conservatives get, and I would never do that to a child.
Once again, it comes down to an agenda.
Yes.
What is being pushed by the liberal media? I can't count on two hands the number of times that I've taken children into my protective custody because their parents were on meth or whatever. We arrest them. There's no one for the kids to be with, and so we take them into protective custody. We call CPS. We find them a place to be. It's usually with a family member if we can find a mother or grandmother or somebody. But like you said, you can't just leave the child.
No,
But that's the liberal media pushing an agenda.
What
trying to make it
what
look
was his dad being arrested for? What were they going after him? Was he a predator?
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm not saying he was, but what type of person was his dad? I mean, if you come across that border illegally and you go work at somebody's ranch or you go work somewhere and you don't have a criminal record, nobody's even going to know you're here. Does that make sense? They know these people are here because they have addresses. They're going to their houses. They're going to their places of work. They're going and they're picking them up because they know they're here. There's only one reason the government would know you're here.
Well, you got to remember. So what was happening, and a lot of people don't know this, even right here in Abilene, Texas, what they were doing is they were processing these people at the border. When Joe Biden let everybody flood the border.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to Texas Highway Patrol officers that were sent down there for protective deals. And what they were doing is they had a big fenced-in area, and they had every one of these people, and they would give them all a number. And then they would call out numbers 30 through 70. And these people would walk up and they would take down their information. What is your name? What is the address you're going to? What is this? What is this? They give them a check. They give them a cell phone, give them money, and send them on their way. And say, you have a court appointment, a date with an immigration attorney on this date. And so these guys may say, yeah, I'm going to go to Chicago, and here's the address I'm going to, whatever. And they would put them on buses. They'd put them on airplanes right here in Abilene, Texas. They'd go from the Bluebonnet facility, and they'd ship them over here to the airport in Abilene, Texas, and put them on a stinking airplane. And they were gone.
Just like that.
Just like that. And we did have addresses, and we did have things like that. So that's where they're coming up with these addresses from.
Okay.
Or all these people that Joe Biden let into this country.
And that's
And
why
like I
you're
said,
able to run the
that's
backgrounds.
not me surmising. That is me talking to law enforcement officers that were on the border and saw this happen.
And that's where it comes into how they know these are criminals back home.
That's how they're
Plus they're
tracking these
committing.
people
Plus
down.
they're
Yes.
also committing crimes here. Some
Yeah.
of them.
If
are
they're not
committing-
being reported
Yeah.
by somebody that says, hey, this guy's an illegal, he's working at this company.
Yeah.
Well, so this administration is pushing very hard on immigration enforcement, obviously. One of the key components to doing that is a provision under Title 8 of the United States Code 1324. It's harboring an alien. But it's a lot broader than most people think. So harboring an alien could be anything where you harbor, move, transport, or conceal either intentionally or recklessly. And so let's say someone's in the country unlawfully. Maybe they're a student that's overstayed their visa, and you rent a room to them. You're violating criminal federal law. Let's say you give them a ride. You pick them up at the bus station. Let's say you employ them as a day laborer. You're violating federal criminal law. You could be criminally indicted. So there's a lot of different ways. I mean, really, there could be an argument that if you're providing substantial assistance, either
Correct.
through providing food or sustenance, providing shelter, even for a temporary basis, you could be committing federal criminal law. So for the people listening, right, even an act of kindness, where you're like, well, I just feel bad for this person, so I want to try to help them out, could be a violation of federal law.
Yeah.
And-
more
and-
than likely is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You have to understand, I mean, the Constitution was written for American citizens, for the citizens of America. So if you're a citizen of the United States, you fall under that Constitution. You have those rights. Those are your rights. You're either born with them or you become a legal citizen. I just thought of something, sorry. I was like, they could have dropped the 5-year-old off at the luring center.
Yeah. I mean,
But no, honestly, I'm glad they took care of that child. I am honestly glad they took care of the child. So back to our rights. Sorry, it just clicked in my head. I was like,
I love it. I mean, it's like, what would you expect them to do? I mean, you wouldn't leave the child there, right?
No.
What would
Especially
leave
when
it.
all of his other family
With-
members probably fled too. If they were
and all
illegal.
this,
I mean.
and this was cold weather. There's no way I would leave a child.
Well, you
Yeah.
got to remember, a lot of these children, their parents took them to the borders of South America. They made the trek all the way across Mexico to come to this country because they had big caravans. Or if they were in Mexico, they sent them. Some of them were
There's a lot of children
were
they
even
lost.
without parents. They were being escorted across. They paid the money to the coyotes to bring them across to this country, and some of them didn't even have parents. So all of a sudden, they're here to arrest this guy, and he flees and leaves a 5-year-old kid.
Who says it's really his child? Because
Exactly.
there
Law
was a
enforcement-
lot of children come up missing.
Hey, it could have been somebody that was sexually exploited and brought over here for that purpose. It could have been anything. So for them to put out that propaganda that the ICE agents detain this child, yeah, they're going to detain the child. They're going to find out where he's supposed to be. They're going to try to get him back home with his relatives. I mean,
they're not. Yeah, they're not heartless people.
no.
Yeah.
They're just trying to protect us. And as for them wearing masks and covered up, I 100% agree with it because you know how many of them's addresses have been put out there, and that goes back to where they live and now their families are being threatened. Yeah, they're okay. I'm okay with people wearing over their face.
All right, so this is a great point. I think this is one we should talk about. My knee-jerk reaction was I was not okay with it. right? This isn't
With
the
wearing masks?
yeah, with a mask and the rifles looking like paramilitary. I was like, Jesus, this isn't an authoritarian regime. This isn't the Gestapo, right? I mean, this is. There's a part of me that is like, this is terrifying. And then Chad, you put something in context that I hadn't thought about. Like these men and women serving as federal ICE or Homeland Security agents are being doxxed. They're being targeted. Their information's being released online. They're being attacked. Their families are being outed and attacked. And so, when you're thinking, man, all I'm doing is the job that the U.S. government has hired me to do, and I'm not making this political. I'm just doing my job. And there's
Enforcing law.
Enforcing the laws, right?
Yeah.
And then you and your family are being targeted. That puts it in a different context.
Because the that's the thing is, there's already been the one Trump supporter that was killed there in Portland. I think it was last week for wearing a Trump hat, and then you had the other individual that was attacked and they made him take off his jacket. You had the media guy that was pulled over by protesters and his vehicle searched by protesters because they thought he was ICE. Okay. That is not protesting. That right there is you're trying to take control over people, because I'll be damned if you're going to make me pull over and search my vehicle to make sure I'm not ICE.
Oh,
Who do you think you are?
Surround my vehicle and make me stop in any form or fashion.
You know,
'Cause I'm going to be in fear
and
of my life.
He was with
and
the
I'm gonna be
media
driving through your stupid ass.
and that's the thing. And then you have the lady that doxed the ICE agents and put their home addresses out there.
But you also got to
But
remember,
they arrested her.
ICE is not the only agencies
No.
out there wearing masks.
No.
We've got people that are undercover agents that are doing operations that don't need to have their identity exposed,
Right.
that are assisting. It was 5 years ago that California was mandating everybody wear a mask or you were going to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, what is it? Oh, we don't want you wearing a mask. You look terrible. Well, 5 years ago, everybody had to. You're going to jail.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty much what that agenda is pushing at the time that's going to be popular.
Mm-hmm. Well, what time is it anyways? Oh,
Well,
gosh.
and I want to say one thing about the Constitution. Okay, and we've talked about the Constitution. We've talked about right and wrong. We've talked about, on the street is not the place to voice your opinion. It's in federal court or wherever. And like we discussed last week, I'm running for State House HD 71 right now. And I'm a disabled Marine veteran. I'm a retired United States Marshal. And I've had so many people ask me, what do you think about burning the flag? Okay. And I made a TikTok video about it. And I may have lost some popular opinion. I may have gained some supporters. I don't know. But it goes down to the Constitution. I believe you have the constitutional right to voice your opinion.
Yes.
What is going to happen if all of a sudden we have so many Muslims in this country that they say, okay, well, you have to fly the Muslim flag? Or we don't even have to go there. Let's say that you are so pissed off at the American government that you yourself want to burn the flag and say, I disagree with the United States of America. That is what differentiates us from Russia and Cuba and China, North Korea. Okay? So, that being said, I believe your freedom of speech is the utmost importance to be protected
We're running.
and valued. Now, you burn the flag in front of me and my sons that were U.S. Marines and any other veteran or anybody else, I have the constitutional right to maybe take it a different direction. I may have to get somebody to bail me out of jail.
I think
You have the right to do it. I have the right to say I don't agree with what you're doing. So, and I do not agree with it. Like I said, you do it in front of me, we're going to have a problem. And I will stand up and I'll probably get that flag from you or whatever I have to do.
Yeah. I'll bail you out.
If
I
I
appreciate
don't
it.
recall right, you may Google this real quick. But a lot of people had a problem with is you can burn the American flag, freedom of speech, but you burn the pride flag, it's a hate crime, you're going to jail. Does that make sense?
I mean, it makes sense. I don't think
Okay.
there's a constitutional basis for being arrested for burning a hate crime if it's not bootstrapped to some other conduct.
Yeah, I think you'd have to associate that with a conduct against an individual.
But I think there's a lot of people that would want it to be a hate crime, and you're like, well, wait a minute. That's,
You know,
that's not
you
what I'm
can't
doing
have
right
either. You can't have one, but not have the.
Yeah.
If you
Well, it's
burn
the same thing with the Black Lives Matter flag. It's the same thing with Confederate flag.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much controversy over
we
all this
start
stuff.
going down that slippery slope of you can burn this, but you can't burn this without going. We start having issues,
Yeah.
and we start getting into that slippery slope of things.
But I'm also of the opinion that we have freedoms in the United States.
Exactly, we
If
have.
you want to burn the American flag, you have the freedom to leave. Move to Sweden or somewhere else that you like. The same thing with all of these people like on The View, Whoopi Goldberg. Oh, my God, Whoopi, I hope you hear this because you're an idiot. Joy Behar, y'all are all a bunch of idiots. Okay? You keep saying you're going to leave the United States of America if Trump's elected, if this, if that. Do it. Oh, my God, quit threatening it and just go. But that's with anybody. If you don't like where you live, if I get so mad at the United States that I'm going to burn the flag, I'm picking up my family and I'm going to go find somewhere that we're happy to be in. Okay?
Yeah,
It's just the way it is.
Why be miserable, right? When you have the choice to move.
You have the freedom.
I'm going to piggyback on what you said, and maybe we can wrap up. But what makes this country great, right, is the ability to have differences. And,
Absolutely.
And the rule of law is so critically important to the foundation of our democracy. And when you go down this slippery slope, when there's this erosion where people don't think the law applies to them, that's really where you feel our democracy, our republic under attack, and because it's the bedrock to so many of our principles. We got to have the enforcement. We got to have the accountability with our rule of law.
Yes.
And so, because we can have all the opinions we want and debate our differences, but when you have an objective metric on what is the rule of law and what is legal, what's not lawful.
Yeah. And it's usually the people that are screaming, my uncle's a bailiff, I know my rights. It's usually those people that probably need to reevaluate their actions and how they're interacting with law enforcement.
I would, and I would just encourage anyone listening to show some grace, right? These to the men and women that are in uniform or serving as federal agents or law enforcement. It's a tough job. I know there's a lot of emotional beliefs around our immigration law, specifically right now in the country. But these are good men and women for the most part, just trying to do a job. And so show some grace. I'd also encourage our law enforcement to show some restraint and continue serving to the best of your abilities. I know it's a hard job, but the Constitution should be guiding your steps.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, I'll piggyback off what Russell said. Quit jumping to conclusions when you see these videos. You weren't there. You don't know what happened. It will come out in a court of law, and that's where it will be decided. I mean, it's okay to have an opinion, but you need to base your opinion and state the fact. I don't know all the facts. Based on what I saw, here's my perception of how I feel.
And not emotions.
Yeah,
that's
not
the
emotions.
problem.
We don't need to be going out and burning things and flipping cars
No.
and raising hell on something that you have no idea what really transpired.
And imagine a lot of the people there in Minneapolis, because from what I understand, a lot of these protesters are coming in from out of town. They don't appreciate you driving around honking their horn and whistling, with whistles. Imagine these people don't appreciate that. Not saying all the protesters are paid, but I'm sure there's a few of them.
You put money on that.
But be respectful, plain and simple. I mean, this is
nice.
our country. This is our country as United States Americans.
Yeah.
And if you get arrested, call Keith and Laura Fing
Well,
Yeah.
you know, there's a golden proverb, golden rules: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know,
Yes.
treat people the way that you want to be treated. We'll all get along, and it'll be a better world.
Yeah. So, 2 weeks we'll be back. We're going to do these podcasts twice a month, and we'll get into some activity or what's current events and what we see it as. Also, I would like to talk a little bit about. I know a lot of these people out there. A lot of people don't understand. Their kids. We talked about the Fourth Amendment right. Your child still has a Fourth Amendment right in the United States in school. Now, in Texas, they don't have to call or notify the parents anymore because they've kind of taken that right away from us. But your child still retains that Fourth Amendment right. And so we can talk a little bit about that also and some current events of a lot of parents don't understand at 17 in the state of Texas, your child's considered a minor for everything but criminal.
Yeah.
A criminal, they are now an adult, but everything else, they're still a minor.
There's that's a lot to unpack. We'll dive into that.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Next podcast.
So, and parents, y'all need to know this information. Y'all really do. As parents, grandparents, things like that. And that's what we do. We actually work with a lot of, we do a lot of civilian and school trainings, things like that is what I do. But we look at a lot of the legal stuff. And, that's what Russell's a great guy. He's going to be taking care of a lot of our school districts. But make sure you tune in. Make sure you watch the next podcast. Share this one. And like I said, right's right, wrong. Be respectful. This is our country.
Well, and one thing we didn't get in tonight that we're going to get into next time is the protesters storming the church.
Oh, yes. That's a big no-no.
That is something we really need to
You
discuss.
have a First Amendment right, but that protects you from the government. However, you cannot go into somebody else's private property or somebody else's home and think you're going to protest.
Yeah. So we'll get into that
Yeah,
next podcast, but y'all tune in for that one because that one should be pretty heated.
All right. God bless. Love y'all guys, and we will see y'all on the next podcast.
Yeah, stay safe,
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
See, this is fun. That was like 2 hours. I didn't even realize.
Was it really? No, it couldn't be.
Well, no, it was maybe 2 hours from when you finally showed up, but